Okay, so this is a part two of knowledge management and digital note taking in Obsidian. So, in this last video, we discussed some of these very basic components of Obsidian. More than components, I was giving a brief about what exactly happens inside my Obsidian environment. And I want you guys to follow most of those methods. I'm yet to actually get into the core parts of how do I maintain my notes. Yet, this two videos is going to be more about showing you what and how certain things are done inside the Obsidian environment, etc. So then once you have a brief of what really happens and what the kind of things I do, then it is pretty much easy to copy that kind of methods because that's going to be very important because let's say that if you're building your own methods by your own, then it's going to take a while. It's going to take a really long time to master the environment and master your own methodologies. What generally happens is that you come up with some kind of problem while you're maintaining your notes, and then gradually you solve the problems and move ahead. That's what happens. That's why there is a learning curve associated with the entire process. So my objective is basically to cut down all those learning curves and at least to make your learning curve slightly more easy compared to the conventional way of learning things by rote. Okay. So the first thing I want to actually discuss is what exactly are we trying to do here? Okay, in the last video it was more about showing you about the graphs, data views, the indexing, database inside Obsidian, and all those localized way of organizing your information, and also the graph view is more like a global view of things. What I want to actually discuss here is information streams. Okay, so that is in today's context, you're in 2025. This video is recorded in 2025, and there is so much sources of information for you, right? So if you think about like 100, 200 years back, then at that point of time, you probably consume most of the information from some lecturers, somebody who basically gives you a lecture and you write the lecture notes, and then you go to library and read books which are associated to that topic. But today, you not really have some reading materials. You have a variety of reading materials. A variety of sources for the reading materials, and one of that is basically the internet. So you read things from the internet, right? For example, in my context, when I watch some movies, I have to read more about that movies from some sources in internet. So because internet is a place where almost all the contemporary information is available, right? So how do I keep track of that? Yeah, the way how I want you guys to think about this entire process is that all this is basically information. Everything about you, who you are and the kind of mind space that you build, your zones, thinking zones, and everything is all about the kind of information intake you have. And this knowledge management is all about organizing that kind of thoughts and ideas in a much more structured way. So let's think about a classic problem of how do you actually keep track of information that you see from internet. So way before this, there's a history to this method as well. Way before Obsidian, what I used to do is that I read something from internet, copy paste that link into my OneNote, and OneNote magically just bring that link as well. That is, let's say that I read about something somewhere, and OneNote sort of ensures that the moment I copy that paragraph from internet, that part of the paragraph, is sort of like linked with the URL as well. So in that way, I sort of have a context set from where did I basically copy the stuff. And there is a problem with that method as well. That is, it sort of makes your entire thing messy, and there is so much of duplication. You have to copy paste things from internet, paste it in your note, and all this kind of hustles are there. So here we are sort of bypassing this entire thing. Okay. Now let's think about a movie, the one that we were actually discussing of in the past video, that is Agraharatala Karda. So let's open up Obsidian. Okay, as you can see, there are some changes in my Obsidian environment because I sort of changed my theme in between. I've been using that light color theme for a while, so now I felt that maybe I should change it. So last day I changed the theme, so now it's dark. I don't know. This is one of the best things about Obsidian, that is you have so many themes in Obsidian. You can keep changing the theme. Let's say that you spend a lot of time in front of the laptop, right? There is so much of this is what you call fun. There is so much digital immersion. That's another thing. Let's go to the database of Cinema. So database. Okay, so I think I already explained this in my previous video. That is, I have some kind of approach for all the kind of files. That is, the database will be stored as database underscore. So this is something you call as snaking. This underscore method. And for tags, I will get into the tags in a while. Okay, so look at the phone. Look at the kind of formatting used here. So this is something called as camel casing. So there are like Classic programming stuff, guys. When you write programs in Java, you prefer camel casing. Often when people write programs in Python, then it's the snake case. So I prefer snake casing, especially in this environment. So there's a reason why these kind of choices are made. That is, let's say that if you're putting a snake case here, then that's going to make the string look longer. So I just want the tags to be more compact. But it doesn't matter with the file names. File names can slightly longer because there is a one extra character here that is the underscore. So here I just wanted it to look slightly more cleaner. So earlier, when I was using and I was actually using snake case for tags as well, then I sort of figured it out that sometimes I use pretty long tags, and maybe the cleaner approach is to use camel cases. So that's how I ended up with the camel casing. So that's the logic for that. That's another principle. So let's get into this movie. Okay, so this is something which I watched like 20th Jan. So sometimes it's not necessary that these dates are precise. I mean, maybe I can actually look into the screenshots which I took on that day to see on which day I basically watched that movie. But it's okay. It sort of gives you an approximation on the notes. Nowadays, the moment I watch the movies, I immediately make sure that I create a note on that day itself. So there are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 5 links. So this is something you call as a bookmarks, right? So let's go to this one. So this is a very good reading on this movie. So what happens is when you watch these kind of movies, you already get a high level picture of what exactly is happening there, but sometimes you just sort of struggle to actually articulate your ideas on it. Like, I mean, the moment the movie starts, maybe after 10, 20 minutes, you realize that this movie is about this topic. So you can just sort of narrow down your thinking into looking at those kind of markers and figure out the stuffs. But still, there are so many markers in the movie. Sometimes you miss out, and you can read about that from someone else's blog. It's incredible. There are so many smart people on the internet. You can learn from that. So, this is a reading. We're not going to get into the reading, what exactly is happening here. But what I want to show here is couple of things. So the first thing is the highlight. So these yellow highlights are something which is about the movie. Okay, generally about the movie, maybe the historical context or some kind of an idea, the general aspects of the movie, and all this. The yellow highlights are basically that, and the red are basically commentaries or some kind of something which is oriented to the cast, something like that. Because this movie, as overall, is basically based on the caste politics. Okay. Something better I can show you is okay. Let's go to this one. This is a very recent marking. Okay. This is way more structured. Okay, so if you just check the note. Okay, so this is a movie called No Country for Old Men, directed by Coen Brothers. So what I have done is that in this movie, I mean, this entire article, if you take this entire article, I can actually divide it into different things. I mean, if the entire article is like a whole one piece can be divided into multiple commentaries, multiple statements, and all this stuff. So they'll be touching different ideas inside that itself, right? And all these statements, commentaries, ideas, all this will be divided into different highlights. Okay. So for example, the red highlights are basically about the directors. Why does it matter? Because we have a specific file on the director itself. So what are the things I basically read here, which are related to the director, that will be marked in red. And the yellow, like I mentioned a while back, often yellow is a very standard marking I use for whatever which is general, something which is like very close to the topic or something which is a general information for me. And then the blue highlights are about the cinema, the whole idea of cinema itself, not this particular cinema, but rather the whole idea of filmmaking. Okay. So, and then there are certain segments, I think notes on Frago. I think it's the, yeah, this is sort of like, giving me an idea that there are certain notes in this particular blog which is related to the Frago movie, which is another movie of the Coen Brothers, which I need to watch maybe in a while. So that will go to my watch list. Okay, so there are like 3, 4 sets of information which I'm trying to map from this one blog itself. So I'm actually segregating each of this piece of information into different highlights. And what I'm doing next is that this particular thing, this is a plugin This is basically an extension in Edge, and this extensions plugin is also available in Obsidian. So the moment I basically import these bookmarks into my Obsidian, this Obsidian is automatically going to create all the links inside the Obsidian itself. Okay, so this is a trick I follow. This is basically how do you create links. Okay, now I'll just take a moment to explain about links and tags. And after explaining that, this idea will also make sense. Create a new node. So how do you create linkages? This is a very important idea in the world of Obsidian. I mean, it's not just the best idea in Obsidian as well in generally, in the world. So I mean, and if you think about the history of internet, right? There was a reason why internet was actually created. So during the time of Cold War, in the United States, they were working on some kind of a communication system where, let's say that if there is some kind of attack happened on some part of US, and how do they basically communicate that to the other side? Let's say that Washington and California, I mean, these are two states in the two different places, right? One on the other side, I mean, one on the other extreme. So completely different points. Yeah. So let's say that some kind of attack happened in California. How does the communication will go from California to Washington? Okay, and not just in one place. Let's say that there are multiple attacks happening in this states and several states in the US. And how do they comprehend with that? How do they actually work on these kind of communication handling? So they thought about this particular problem, and they came up with a very interesting idea that they decided that they will create a web of communication network. Okay, I think I'll just open a map. Yeah, so let's say that some attacks happened in Arizona, California, and Oregon. Okay, and Washington needs to know about it. Okay, so what they did was that they created a huge web of connections all across the United States. And then let's say that if the communication network sort of failed in between California and Arizona, they can still use some other network from California to, let's say, what is the space? To this state, and to from here to somewhere else, and like that, somehow that signal will traverse through the network and will reach Washington. So the larger idea is that they created a huge web of connections all across United States, so that whatever these networks sort of fails in between, this particular message can be sent from one point to the other point without any kind of disruption. So if a straight line path doesn't work, then you can actually use different other kind of routes to basically send that message from point A to point B. So this is the larger idea of Internet. The first iteration was called ARPANET. So then later they extended this into universities and several government institutions, jabber. But what made Internet more interesting was the evolution of something called hypertext. It was an invention in CERN. So CERN, the particle collider, high energy physics space. So there, some scientists had this idea that how about we connect text together? So let's say that if there is some text, that text will be linked to some other text, and that text will be linked to something else. This is what they call as hypertext. In this way, they can create a structured way of documentation of things, very much like what you basically see in Obsidian, right? So this whole thing is basically a web of information, right? So something is related to something else, and that is related to something else. So these kind of connections, this interconnections in between the text, this become a very revolutionary idea. Not just that, all these documents which are stored inside each piece of the text, that will be tagged. So that will be tagged as paragraphs, headings, if there is any kind of embedding of images, as they have this tag called IMG. Thus, you have something you call as HTML, hypertext markup language. This was something really revolutionary because this sort of enabled huge transfer of information all across internet. Everything was so much interconnected to each other. A classic simple example I can give you is basically the Wikipedia, right? I mean, the entire internet. The moment I hover my mouse over this, this is becoming more highlighted. Yeah, and I can get into this website. So from here, I can get into something else. So from here, I don't know. Now that's so this idea, this clicking of text and getting into some other zone of internet. This is what you actually call as hypertext. So this enabled scientists to organize vast amount of information structurally, and that was something really revolutionary. I mean, this is what created the internet. I mean, this is a very simple idea, but this is what makes internet work. This is what the internet is all about. Internet is fundamentally organizing of information, right? It's a very big space of information, and we navigate through information through these simple clicks. And these clicks are basically, embedding of some text inside that. So that's the larger idea, even inside the world of Obsidian as well. So we basically have hyperlinks and we have tags. So hyperlinks and tags becomes a very standard approach to organize information, right? So how do you create a hyperlink? So let's say that I'm writing some node, okay, and I need to embed this node to some other node. So I can open two square brackets like this. In the moment I open the square bracket, it will show me which node I need to link. So let's say that this has to do something with David Glitch. Okay. So the moment I basically create that connection, you can see that this is something called a local graph view. So the local graph view is linking this node to David Glitch. So let's say, so now cinema is linked to David Glitch. Okay. So the moment you have a square bracket, and inside the square bracket, if you have some node's name, then that means that is a reference to a node. That's the whole idea. Okay. And the second thing is tags. So tags is another way to basically organize something. So let's say cinema. Okay. So this node is also tagged. Tag, the basic idea of tag inside a category called cinema. So here you have so many tags. I mean, I rarely use tags, but still, I mean, I do use tags. I mean, most of my tags are sort of automatically created because of my template. But I don't actually look much into the tags. That's the whole idea. So here, even inside cinema, there are like 143 references for cinema. Yeah, 143 node references for cinema. And what you can do is that you can create nested tags as well. So cinema slash cache. So cache is a movie. So this means that I'm actually referring this node to not just a cinema, but a subcategory inside the cinema. And that is basically a node called cache. Okay. So I can actually get into this. See? So currently there are like two nodes which are on that tag. One is this one, cinema, and the other one. So that's how you create links and that's how you create tags. So these two are two ways how you can basically organize information inside the environment of Obsidian. Not just this. I mean, I already showed you how to use YAML files and all, but this is something very basic. I mean, YAML is so damn powerful that I rarely use these methods except for the links. And also, while I'm using links, I'm very responsible. I always make sure that I don't overly use links. I don't want that kind of a global view aesthetics, but rather I want things to be more sensible. Okay. So here, what is happening is that all this information which I basically provide inside this particular plugin, that can be imported to my Obsidian environment as well. So this is a particular plugin called Raindrop. So Raindrop has a plugin in Obsidian as an extension. Name is Raindrop, and this Raindrop has a plugin in Obsidian as well. So I'm just demonstrate how all those things are basically done. So here I'm giving this link reference as Coin Brothers, and then again, I'm giving this cinema reference because the blue highlights are pretty much associated to cinema. And the Frago, I'm just naming it. I'm not giving any specifics that this has to do more with Frago or something like that, because there is no much reference of Frago in this blog. There is just a very simple reference to this. So I can sync. Okay, I mean, all the files are actually up to date, so I don't have anything to sync. So the Raindrop, according to my settings, in every 1 minute, it will sync my Obsidian with the Raindrop extension. So that way, all the information which is in there will reflect in my Obsidian environment as well. So now let's go to Common Brothers. So I can navigate to anywhere. I can navigate to Common Brothers. I can navigate to the movie, wherever it is, and I can find that information very well organized. So these are the tags. So something very interesting about the Raindrop is that even inside the Raindrop environment as well, you can organize everything with respect to the tags. Okay. And what are the tags that you are using inside the Raindrop environment? That is, there is a tag structure to it, right? I mean, things are not random. I mean, you provide some kind of a structure to the tags. For example, this particular link will be stored inside cinema, directors, Coen Brothers, cinema, No Country for Old Men. These are two tags I used for this particular link. So my Obsidian is also going to follow the same tag structure in the Obsidian environment as well. So the way how Obsidian will organize this particular link will be inside cinema, there'll be a sub-tag called director. Inside the director, there'll be Coen Brothers. So if I go to my tags again, directors, Coen Brothers, here is it. That's it, yeah. So how do you set up this entire environment? That I will show in the part 3. Because setting up of this Obsidian, that itself is a pretty long task. So I don't have time to show all those things inside this video. So I'm just postponing that for the next video. Okay. So this is how those imports from Raindrop will look like. So let's say that if I'm making some kind of highlight there, that highlight will reflect here immediately, not exactly immediately. So it will just sort of reflect here. So let's say that I'm highlighting this paragraph. Okay, yellow highlight. I made the highlight, and I will go for a full sync. Yeah, here it is. Amazing. So I don't need the sync, so I'll just delete it. Oh, it is still syncing. Okay, I think this is going to take a while anyways because it's syncing all the highlights. So anyways, you got the point, right? This will be removed in a while. Once this task is done, the new task is in the queue. So that will be done. So this is how things work with Bookmark Manager and Obsidian. So look at it. So all these references which are provided inside the Raindrop, which was related to the links, that is Coen Brothers, here you can see that it is already in note right now. Okay. And again, cinema is in note. I mean, I have already made that note, so I just need to link that. So Fargo, look at it. Interesting thing here, that is, this stuff is open. That means I'm yet to watch this movie, and this is going to remain like that. Okay, something else I want to show is that if you put a bar here, okay, and then give some other name or something like that, this actually enable you to provide alias names, right? So I don't want this Fargo underscore version 0 as a name, which will be shown in the note. I just want it to be Fargo. So I gave an alias name to this. So this is how you basically add an alias name, by adding a bar intermediate. So this note is going to provide me a better understanding of what each of these highlights are all about. There are some slight deviations in the color, that's like, it's actually yellow, but the way how Obsidian is interpreting it or showing it is slightly different. I mean, the red here is different from the red which is used here, but it follows almost the same color standards. And the topics are basically, these two tags. Very important idea. So what I can do is that the moment I have something stored as a metadata, as I mentioned in the last video, all this metadata can be turned into some kind of a table. You can actually fetch the metadata and the values inside the metadata into some kind of a table. So this is a very shorthand to create metadata. So this is one approach where you give these kind of bars, what do you call these underscores or whatever it is, and then you follow this standard for it. That is, this is the key and this is the value. This is one approach, and the other approach is basically by giving this double column. So URL, node, and topic, all these are basically keys for that metadata. So now I have a very standard metadata format for this particular node. Since this is available as in metadata, I can actually create an index on it. Right? Yeah. So this is a note on that particular movie, No Country for Old Men, and here is the index. Okay, I'm not going to get into the explanation of how I wrote this code. This code is slightly tricky. This is going to take you a while to learn, how to write this querying and all. Maybe that will be covered in some other video, or maybe you can follow some other YouTube videos to understand that. But what I'll be doing is I'll be providing you all these folders and all these resources so that you can follow the very same system in your Obsidian as well. So all these files, all these are basically template files only. So I'll be directly forwarding you all these template files so that you can just put these template files in your system and then you can directly map it. So that's the larger idea. Okay, so you can actually, in simple, you can just use a query to mine that information. This is what makes Obsidian really powerful, not just the Obsidian data view. So you can create some properties somewhere around the Obsidian and then use some querying to organize that information. So look at it. This is something very specific to a movie. And since I have given some metadata and I've given some tags here, what are the tags? The metadata here, I'm actually using some querying to filter this information. So let's say that if I'm creating like 100 bookmarks on this particular node, all these bookmarks will be reflected directly inside my Obsidian, specifically inside the file which I'm keeping track of that movie. So this is something incredible. I mean, I'm getting all the pieces of information in one place. Okay, this is amazing. And let's go to the other example. I just want to show you the same thing, in a much more elaborate way. So, so I think I have read all these blogs on this particular movie, and I don't know whether I have made any highlights or not, but the important thing is that all these are basically references for this particular movie in internet, the things which I basically read, and those things are being organized inside my note on this movie. This is very important. This is very important because earlier doing something like this was very difficult. So Obsidian is making this entire process really easy. So these are things I came up with. I don't know whether someone else has basically done it or not, but I basically encountered this problem. Bookmark management was a very big problem for me. So I thought about this problem and I sort of figured it out how to approach it. Even today also I came up with something interesting. That is this particular thing, filmography. So the idea of this filmography is that I have seen certain movies of this particular director, right? So what I need to do is that I need a index table which will keep track of the movies I have seen of that particular director. Okay, so this is a specific code I wrote for it. Yeah. So what this code is going to do is that I have a folder called cinema, right, where I basically keep track of all the notes regarding the movie. So this particular code is going to look into that folder and look for the references of this director. That is, the director name is provided inside this metadata, right? It is going to look into this particular, key or particular property and look for that director's name. And if the director's name is there in that particular note, it is going to bring that note into this space. So, Coen Brothers is a reference in No Country for Old Men. So that's why the Coen Brothers sheet or this note is displayed here. Yeah, so much new things. So yeah, again, I'll be providing you all these things, so you don't need to actually work hard on it. So I'm explaining you this so that you can also know what exactly is happening inside this environment. Okay. Maybe your objective is not to basically watch movies and make these kind of references, but still you sort of got this idea, right? What exactly we're trying to do here. That is, this particular note is looking into certain folders, and from that folder, it is looking into a property called director, and inside that, it is looking into a link reference. Okay, this .file.link is basically this is a self-reference. That is, this is basically returning the link to this Coen Brothers, this particular file itself, and this .file.link has the same reference as this stuff. So slightly complicated, maybe a little hard to comprehend, but you will figure it out. Okay, you will figure it out gradually. So, or else you can use GPT to generate these things. GPT does support data view as well. Now you know what data view actually does, so you can actually write prompts in GPT to generate it. Okay, that's the whole point. So this is how the bookmarking sort of works in. So bookmarking enables you to organize information from internet, organize it, slightly segregate that into how you want it, and then provide tags to this, provide links to that, import all those things into your Obsidian environment, and Obsidian will automatically connect all those information inside your node. It is a seamless integration. Amazing stuff. The next thing I want to show is something regarding Zotero. So Zotero is something you call as a reference manager. So what does Zotero do? Zotero is this place where you can actually put all your research papers, PDF files, or whatever you basically read. And this note, so these highlights that you make inside the environment of Zotero, that can also be imported to Obsidian. Okay, let's think about a very simple example inside this environment. Let's go to cast and comparative study. This is something interesting to explain. Okay. Great. Yeah. So this is a paper I read recently. Okay, and all these things which are in red. These are the arguments of Gandhi. Okay, so okay, what exactly this paper is about? This is basically putting Gandhi and Ambedkar together. Their worldviews on different things. So Gandhi has an argument, Ambedkar has an argument. Again, the same idea as what we saw in the case of web pages as well, where you have a long reading, and inside the long reading there are like different arguments, statements, commentaries, and all. So how do you basically segregate each of those ideas into different buckets? And we are actually using highlights for that purpose. So here again the same idea. Here I'm using multiple colors to represent multiple ideas. So Gandhi is represented with red, Ambedkar with yellow, and that just keep going on. Okay, I don't know why this is yellow. Okay, yellow is again a general marking. So I didn't finish it by the way. So while you're reading it, you can make these highlights. Okay. And then what you can do is that Zotero has again some plugins which integrates the Zotero environment to the Obsidian environment. So what you can do is that you can just import this particular file, comparative study. Okay, I don't want to import it right now. Good. Yeah, there is a reason I don't want to import it. I'll just show you now. Yeah, because of this reason. Okay, so look at how this information is structured inside Obsidian. This is a template. Okay, so what Obsidian is doing is that Obsidian is connected to the Zotero environment. Okay, and it is fetching the information from the Zotero environment and putting that into a very specific template that you have defined. Okay, and formatting that information according to the template that you have provided. For example, so this is the template I'm using for all the Zotero fetches. Okay, so all these are basically data points. Okay, I mean all these are properties. So what happens is that whatever information that you provide inside, either I provide or the provided inside the paper. Okay, all those will be reflected here. So since this is basically what this is a property, I can always use some kind of indexing. This is sort of like making things more feature proof. I mean, comments, mind map, status, topic, vocabulary, performance, and all this kind of stuff. These are general properties I use in all the kind of notes just to track it, so that I can index these information at any point of time. Okay, title, metadata, citation abstract, keyword. So this particular template, it's something which I downloaded from internet. I don't know from where I downloaded it, and later I modified this entire template according to my own need. So many things. I mean, this is not exactly the original version. The original version is something very different, and I think the original version had some kind of problems as well. So I later had to fix it. So this is a very different version. So I'll be providing you this as well. Okay. So here, this is the important thing. Okay. So notes. So this is a general template, right? So Obsidian is fetching information from the Zotero environment and putting that into this particular template, and then creating a note out of it, right? So when it is fetching those information, you have to specify that what these highlights actually means. Okay, that's important. So whenever I'm reading certain topics, what I do is that I basically edit this template, and I just say that okay, this has to do with Gandhi, this has to do with Baker, this has to do with something else. That kind of. I will just give tags to each of these highlights, and that will ensure that whatever which is created as a file in my Obsidian environment, that is also very well structured. Okay, so that's important. So let's say that if I'm switching to some other notes, okay. I think I was reading Nation Without Nationalism last time. Let's go to postmodernism, which seems like postmodernism. Yeah, this is something clever. So, yeah, so this is a reading about postmodernism, right? So the yellow are some general highlights. Okay, all these yellow that you see here, all these are some kind of a general highlights. And red is basically about postmodernism. Okay, and here I have given some tags as well, so that I have a context of what these things are. Okay, so here I have done something even interesting. That is this particular highlight. Okay, I wrote a comment for this highlight, and that comment itself is basically a link to the postmodernism node inside my Obsidian environment. And this particular thing I'll call this Gary. Okay, so like I mentioned in my previous explanation on bookmarking, you can use these kind of brackets or hashtags to represent tags or links in Obsidian. So let's see how this basically sort of looks like. For example, we will import this anyways. So I'll just copy this idea, that is the red is basically about postmodernism, and yellow is some important points already there. So there is no tags for orange. Okay. So Zotero postmodernism, boom. So it's fetching all the information on postmodernism. Voila. Yeah, that's it. Great. So this is basically a transcript. So what I did was that I extracted the transcript from that video and used GPT to slightly format it. So this is how it sort of looks like, pretty clean. Because the transcript is often messy, right? In the transcript, they take poses, they do different things. There are conversations inside any lecture transcript. So we want to organize all those things. That's not a readable format. So what I do is that I use GPT to basically format it, clean it. So I have the reference. This URL is basically where I found the videos. Okay, so some keywords are Mars. Okay, these are basically these tags I provided here. Okay, so if I click on this is basically the link to the PDF. Okay, and all these are empty because all these fields are empty here as well. So let's say that if these fields were not empty, if these fields had some data, then all those data will reflect here. So for this paper in particular, it doesn't have any such kind of information. But let's say that if you're reading some research paper, so many of these things will be filled properly. Yeah, here is the thing. See, red, all the reds are postmodernism, and then yellow is important to me. Yeah, and look at the references here. So underneath this red, the postmodernism tag is provided. So the postmodernism note is linked to this one. So if I go to postmodernism and check the local graph, this is the paper. This is the paper. So this paper is linked to postmodernism. So I didn't put any effort or anything like that. The Obsidian environment, it directly made the linkages and all, which makes your work very easy. So that's incredible. Another important thing, this particular note is not created. Okay, so there is a reference to this note in my Obsidian, but this particular note is not created. So let's say that if I click on this, it will automatically create that note. So this is a thinker, and according to her hierarchy, this should be organized inside another folder called thinker. So this is how you extract different pieces of information from different places. So now there are like two connections. One connection is that this particular thing is connected to postmodernism, and it is something mentioned by some thinker, and this is providing the map. Enlightenment version 0 is not created. So this note is also important. Okay, so note. And something important is that I need to move this to political science. And postmodernism is in cinema, but I think I will move that into political science. Yeah. Okay, great. Now I can just close it because I don't need it. Yeah. So that's the whole idea. Okay. So now I think I have discussed about two important channels. So the one channel is basically the bookmarks, the information that you read from the internet. That is organized in Raindrop, and there are plugins for it. And here is a Zotero. And here inside, even it's a Zotero as well. You're reading certain things, and those kind of information come to Obsidian through the Zotero Obsidian, what do you call for that? Integration. Yeah. So I think not just that, something else. It's going to go. So this is how these kind of informations are basically shared mutually inside the Obsidian environment, and this is how you bring the channels together. And this is something incredible, especially this bookmarking thing, the Zotero integration, because what this is actually doing is that this is actually creating one space for all the information. And not just that, if you think about the first video was more about how do you localize this pieces of information that you see in different spaces in internet, or different pieces of information, and sort of create one hub so that you can think more locally about those ideas. So these were the channels. These were the channels of all the kind of information that you basically consume. You read books as PDF, and the PDFs can be actually brought into Zotero, and whatever you read, that can be imported into Obsidian. And another source is that, let's say that you're again reading something in the internet, and that can be actually handled by a bookmark manager, and all those notes and all those ideas can also be brought to Obsidian through the Raindrops plugin. And once these information is inside the Obsidian environment, then you already know the kind of stuff you can actually do. I mean, you can create so many nodes, you can cross-refer it, you can refer one idea to the other one, and you can just keep building more and more webs. And it's just things becomes extremely easy. You will not be lost inside the world of Obsidian if you actually follow these kind of methods. That's one thing. And something very interesting I want to show is basically the ChatGPT integration. So okay, there are like two ways you can actually integrate ChatGPT into your environment. One is as a chat. Yeah. So so many cool things you can actually do with this. So let's say that let's go to Abraham. Okay. So what this particular plugin is doing is that once you have notes, right? Once you have any node, you can actually integrate this node to your ChatGPT environment. There are like so many. Okay, after this entire ChatGPT revolution, Obsidian become very very powerful. There are like so many plugins which integrates the large language models to your Obsidian system, and some of these are like intensively heavy. I mean, very heavy, because there is this thing called a smart plugin. So what smart plugin does is that it just keep on convoluting through your nodes, and it automatically looks into patterns, and that sort of help you to see how one node is related to other node, and that is slightly more smarter compared to how you manually do that. Well, I'm not a very big fan of that particular approach, and that particular plugin consumes so much of your computation. Every time when you open your Obsidian, that plugin, it goes through it scans through your entire node, and it consumes so much of computing. So that will make your system slow while that application runs. And once it maintains some cache, it's not a problem. But I want my nodes to work as smooth as possible. It's something called smart plugin or something like that. It's somewhere here. No, it's not. Just smart connections, I guess. Yeah, smart connections. I have turned it off right now because I no longer use it. This is a much lighter version. So what it does is that, let's say that this movie make a summary. So this plugin is very much like the ChatGPT that you basically use in ChatGPT.com. So what this actually does is that this is integrated to the this is a summary. It's a very simple note. So one of the things I have written here, it is actually creating a summary yourself. Very good. So let's think about something database. Just go financial economics. Okay. Okay. Create a point summary. Yeah. Wow. Great. Right. Awesome. Okay, so this is what it does. So it actually integrates your node to the ChatGPT environment, and you can actually do everything. The kind of stuff that you do inside the ChatGPT, you can actually do that inside this particular environment as well. So if you want, you can save these nodes to your ChatGPT. So now this is saved. So all these stuffs are saved inside the Obsidian environment. So if you want, you can actually rename it. If you want, you can actually link it. So I mean, it is automatically linked, by the way. So if I go to Agraharata, so this reference is here. Pretty cool. So dynamics of hierarchy. So this is something really good. So let's say that if you don't want to open ChatGPT and then you want to look for it inside the ChatGPT environment, and then also sometimes it is very difficult to keep track of the chats that are generated inside ChatGPT environment. So this will organize all the ChatGPT records inside your Obsidian. So this is also really powerful, incredible stuff. Okay, and something else is that something interesting about this particular thing is that ChatGPT or another long theory, this maintains the context of your chats. Okay, I mean, let's say when you're using ChatGPT, right? ChatGPT in the ChatGPT website, every chat is interlinked to each other, right? The ChatGPT basically maintains the context of your chats. So the first chat and the second chat and the third chat, all this context is actually maintained inside it. But let's say that when you're using ChatGPT through the APIs, it doesn't maintain it. So what we do is that we use another plugin called LandChat to basically create that kind of a functionality for the APIs as well. So this is LandChat integrated. So it has a very good context of what exactly this is talking. So all this works because of the API. So underneath this, there is my API key for ChatGPT and what are these are Cloudy and all the spaces. I mean, this is integrated to I think with my ChatGPT, Cloudy, and Gemini is something I'm yet to do. I mean, I only use either ChatGPT or Cloudy. So mostly I use Sonnet nowadays because I have some credit balance there. So simple things, any language model can actually do this. So it doesn't matter. But the larger point is that you don't need to actually spend so much of time inside the ChatGPT environment when you have something like that inside your Obsidian environment itself. So this is something incredible and very, very handy, very handy. I mean, the most useful feature for me is basically not that, something else. That is, let's say that if you're, let's think about this thing. Yeah. So this is a transcript. This is some video. I think which one is this? Yeah. So this is basically character as plot. This is a film theory lecture, and I extracted the transcript of it. And as I told you, the transcript videos are basically very conversational. The lectures are very conversational, right? And these conversational lectures are very hard to basically grasp because if you try to read this transcript, sometimes I mean you get lost because you have no context what they're actually saying, and there are so many full stops and pauses in between it. It doesn't actually capture the transcript, doesn't capture it. So what I do is that I download the transcript and then I basically organize that transcript with the GPT. So there is a token limit to the GPT, which the one we're actually using that is around 2000. So what this particular application does is that it takes the entire transcript and divides that into 2000 chunk, 2000 token chunk. Okay, so if I copy this, create a new notes. So this is the first 2000 chunk. Okay, so it's somewhere around 1193. As you can see that this thing doesn't have any full stop, no punctuations or anything. I mean, there is almost no context on what the stuff is. Okay, and what I can do is that I have a ChatGPT plugin installed in my Obsidian environment. With that, I can fix the grammar, spelling, and everything. So this is the prompt for it. So now what this is going to do is that, okay, this is processing. Okay, processing. Let it take a while. So this is a very incredible thing. So let's say that when I'm writing certain things in my Obsidian environment, I don't care about the grammar, spelling, or anything. I mean, for me, what is more important is that the idea which I'm trying to communicate. So when this GPT came in, right, I had this idea that, how do I make use of GPT? That is, the first thing the GPT did was that it sort of made the content writers obsolete. And if that's how things are going to work, then the people who write things, they really need to think deeper into how they accommodate these kind of new systems, especially this language models. So I had this problem that whenever I write certain things, I make so many typos and all because when you write certain things, there is so much of ideas flowing through your head. There's so much of ideas flowing through your head, and sometimes, especially for me, I cannot pause and do the spell correction, grammar correction, and everything. I have to just puke that idea. I mean, that idea has to just come out. Okay, so what I did was that I started focusing more on the ideas rather than what I write. Okay, first thing, I don't actually rephrase my sentences. I mean, I always make sure that I don't rephrase it because there is a way how I want to say certain things, and I think that I have adequate vocabulary to basically explain that ideas. Especially this, if it is something related to political science or sociology, then you have to use certain kind of a phrasing for it. So. I'm very particular about that. And as you read more and as you expand your ideas further, then you build more consciousness with the words as well. So that's another thing. So I preserve the structure of that sentence or paragraph, and I just use GPT to fix the typos in it. Okay, so what it actually does is that it helps me to write more faster, and be more articulate with my ideas. And I can use GPT to fix the grammars or typos. So often the grammar will be right most of the cases, but the typo, there'll be so many typos. There'll be slight repetition of certain things and all this, because you don't care about what exactly you're actually writing in that time. You're more focused on the idea that you want to communicate. So when this came into the picture, then I become more crafty with how I tell stories. When I say tell stories, how I write certain things. For example, if you look into my blogs, there's a very interesting narration styles I basically followed in it. The reason I was able to do that, because once GPT was taking care of my typos, I started focusing more on the style of narration. So narration is basically, if you don't understand what narration is basically how do you tell a story. So that is, for example, if you come to this blog, okay, yeah, these are chunks. Okay, so let's zoom back. So these are certain things I probably read or listened somewhere, and what I wanted with this particular blog was that I had a view of feminism, which I inherited through the writings of Bell Book, and I just wanted to link that world with the world of Coleman, which is Pebbles, and that's a larger idea. And this is where I'm actually trying to give an introduction to what exactly Bell Hooks' views are, and that is very much related to sexism and all this kind of stuff. How she defines feminism as a whole. And then here I'm getting into the world of Pebbles, because to explain what are the feminist ideas inside this world, I have to give a brief on what exactly is the story of Pebbles. And I don't wanted that to be a very naive plot explanation, but rather what I did was that I wrote this entire thing through the perspective of this kid. Okay, so this entire blog is basically a narration from the perspective of the kid. So that's how I was trying to tell the story of Pebbles. So this entire thing is a first person perspective of the story from Pebbles. It's not a conventional plot exploration. And while writing this, I'm also putting some spaces inside this movie itself. And then I'm getting into another analysis, where the moment I explain these things, the analysis, the holes inside the story, which is explained from a first person perspective, that will also be filled. So that's how I basically crafted it. So I was able to focus on these larger ideas because I sort of outsourced this simple grammar fix, spelling fix, and everything to GPT, and I focused more on the narration style. How do I tell the story, and what kind of craft I should follow in this? Almost the same thing. I mean, this is a much smaller writing. This is something really long, 27-minute long reading. So it took me a while to basically think about how do I explain these concepts. This is basically a blog on programming methodology. I had this idea that you can teach programming in a much better way rather than how you learn through W3 schools or some tutorial points or even with some YouTube videos. So I had some engineering context. So I wanted to tell the story of programming through a different narration. So all these examples and everything which I have used inside this, they are like very different things. They're like completely different things. Compared to the kind of examples that you see in other websites. So I started focusing more on narration rather than these tiny nuances. So I just let GPT to do that. And again, I don't use rephrasing. If you actually read this, this is again sort of like a first person perspective, I would say. Take a second person perspective. So let's say if I'm in front of you and if I'm explaining you these concepts, then how it will be. That's how this particular blog is like. This is not like any other a descriptive kind of a thing. It's a whole different writing style. So I was able to do these kind of experimentation because I had interesting tools with me, and I was just making use of these tools to be more crafty with my work. So, well, this was done a while back. This is a transcript, right? So what I did was that I used GPT to make some fixes inside this transcript, so it ends with plenty of internal action. So plenty of internal action. So as you can see that this draft is way different compared to this one. So it has segregated all these things, the conversations in between the lecturer and the student. It has added the punctuation. So if there are any mistakes inside the transcript, it has fixed that as well. So incredible thing it is. I basically create different chunks of this transcript, and this is the only limitation I have. And then I bring it to my Obsidian, do this GPT stuff, and copy that entire script into a proper documentation, export it as PDF. Somewhere here, yeah, export it as PDF and import that into my Zotero. I don't need to do all this stuff, but I do this because this is the system, guys. Follow the system. Okay. Or you can actually do that directly from here. You can actually directly do a Google Doc to Zotero integration, but again, system. Okay. So the larger picture is that all the videos and all these kind of reading should be in one place, and that place is Zotero. Okay. So once these things are here in Zotero, I can read it peacefully. An interesting thing is that the Zotero is also integrated to my phone as well, so I can read it from any place, do the highlights, notes, and everything in my phone as well. So Zotero is synced all across the platforms. Okay, so that means I can use these files in my phone, in my laptop. If I have any other device like an iPad or something, I can use these things in that platform as well. So I can keep making highlights, and all the highlights will eventually reflect into my Obsidian environment. So that's what the whole thing is. Okay. Uh, okay. This entire thing, I mean, this whole lecture was, I think I don't know what's the duration. It's already 1 hour 17 minutes. Uh, okay. I may have to crop certain segments of it yet. I hope this was something useful for you. And let's see that how much you're able to comprehend with all this information you just got exposed to. And if you have any doubts or anything, you can just reach out to me. And this is the part 2. There'll be a part 3. In the part 3 will be all about how do you set up this entire system. That is, how do you create this ChatGPT integration? How do you create this Obsidian integration? How do you, not Obsidian, Raindrop integration? And how do you bring your Zotero into the space? So how do you link all these kind of stuffs together and establish a system like this? So the part 3 will be more about that. The part 1 and the part 2 is pretty much how the system basically works. Okay. So that's it. Okay. Thank you, guys.